Hey everyone, SweetJohnnyCage here, back with another guide for Elden Ring. This time I am very proud to present to you an in-depth breakdown of how to challenge and defeat Malenia the Severed, Blade of Miquella, Goddess of Rot in the Halig Tree. This fight is incredibly difficult. There are plenty of guides and walkthroughs out there that will show you how to take her down using bleed builds, using a fully upgraded Mimic tier summon, summoning other players, using frost damage, fire damage, parrying, all sorts of craziness, and those are all very viable. If you're good at parrying in this game, go for it. Just be aware you have to parry her 3 times in order to get a single riposte, so that, as far as I'm concerned, is a challenge run. And you can use bleed. It gives you great returns on this boss. After you build the meter, it'll deal like 3,000 damage to her. It's pretty incredible, but I realize that may not suit everyone's playstyle. So what I wanted to do was give you, like I said, a very in-depth breakdown of all of her moves, how to react to them, and how to handle the fight. We're going to start off, we're going to give the breakdown of my character, my build, my weapons, my armor, talismans, everything. And then we're going to do a very in-depth analysis of her moves, how to react to them, and then at the end, I'm going to just put in my attempt and my kill for you to enjoy. So this isn't going to be my typical play the boss fight, talk over it, we're done. This is going to go a lot further. The attempt was streamed, so thank you to everybody for joining. Had a couple hundred people watching. It was really, really fun to do it as a group, and I got some great tips throughout, especially for a talisman that I think made the difference, because as soon as I got it, about 30 minutes later, I killed her. So very helpful there. I want to give a really big shout out to a stream viewer, Crab. This person gave me a lot of tips. Really, really helpful. Thank you so much. For the past 3 days, you've been giving me tips for this boss, and it just helped tremendously, so thank you. I will give you a fair warning in that attempt video that I'm putting at the end of this. There's some strong language. It is a very charged moment after 3 days of grinding, and it may blow your speakers a little bit at the very end, but should be fine. I'll balance the audio, don't worry. But without further ado, let's get started with the guide. My character did this fight at level 138 with 34 vigor, 20 mind, 26 endurance, 40 strength, 21 dexterity, 17 intelligence, 42 faith, and 17 arcane. I had a total of 1,392 HP, 115 FP, and 147 stamina. I had medium equipment load with 43 poise, and then my discoveries at 117 and 10 memory slots. I do use Black Flame a couple times in this fight, just while she's coming out of her flower, just to deal some damage. Not necessary in the slightest, did not change my strategy because she only did that a couple of times. If you have a spell handy, go ahead and use it, or use an item that casts a spell. Just get some extra damage in there while that's happening. That was really my mission. For my weapon and shield and talisman and armor and flask, I had a Gargoyle's Greatsword plus 25, no infusion. A brass shield plus 22. This was a tip that I did not know until I started streaming this fight. But you should upgrade your shield as high as you can get it, because the higher upgraded the shield is, the less stamina damage you take from an enemy's attacks. So this is incredibly helpful for the Blade Flurry attack that you're going to have to be dealing with throughout the fight. You want to be able to survive the first flurry and be able to roll twice immediately after. This way you can get out of it and not take any damage. Very important to upgrade your shield. My armor was the Briar set, and this is purchased from the Finger Reader in Roundtable Hold after you defeat Elamir of the Briar, who is located in the Shaded Castle in Mount Gelmir. This is the castle that's surrounded by poison on the map. You don't have to use this armor set. It's really cool, though. It's an homage to Kirk, Knight of Thorns from Dark Souls 1. When you roll into things, it deals a little bit of damage, like 15, 16 points of damage, nothing crazy. The cool thing is, though, is that you can trigger the phase transition by rolling into the boss if she's extremely low on health, which is pretty neat. I have actually gotten a riposte on this boss from the armor, believe it or not. I have, no joke, rolled into her, and she got a full stagger, and I got a riposte off of it. It only happened one time in the hundreds of attempts that I put on this boss, but it is possible. You don't have to use it. Like I said, nominal damage, not a big deal. Use whatever armor you're comfortable with. You do want something that can negate some damage, though, so I don't recommend using cloth or anything. Use some sort of good armor. For my talismans, I have the Bull Goats Talisman. This increases poise. I have the Rotten Winged Sword Insignia. This gives you a buff, a tiny buff, after you successfully hit an enemy 3 times in a row. You then get additional damage on future hits. It only lasts a few seconds, and you're never really going to be hitting the boss more than 2 or 3 times in a row. However, you may have opportunities where your 3rd hit is dealing stagger to the boss still, so you can go in for a 4th hit relatively safely, and you'll get a little bit of damage. Or there are most cases where it's actually useful is that you hit the boss 3 times, and then she will do a close range attack that you can then punish. The bonus goes in then. So it is helpful. You don't want to rely on it. You don't want to just go in on the boss all aggression, trying to get this thing to proc and use that bonus damage. Not worth it in that sense. It's just a nice add-on, which is really all you need. Next, I have the Dragon Crest Great Shield Talisman. This greatly reduces physical damage taken. The boss has a lot of one-shot mechanics. It's not going to negate anything from them, at least in my experience. Maybe if I had really high vitality, it may be the case. But if you ever get like sliced in some follow-up attack that you weren't expecting, this can be the difference between life and death. So really recommend this Great Shield Talisman. And then finally, I have the Erdtree's Favor +1, which just boosts a bunch of stats. For my Flask of Wondrous Physic, I have the Opaline Bubble tier and the Crimson Crystal tier. This gives me a shield that negates 1 hit. For the most part, it negates like 95% damage, and then it will also fill half of my health bar. So it's really useful to use right in Phase 2. If you're entering Phase 2 without full health, chug that as opposed to a regular flask. This way you start off Phase 2 with a shield that will negate 1 hit, including a one-shot hit. And maybe it won't negate the grab, but it will negate everything else. I think the grab counts as 1 damage to break the shield, but it'll really help you out while you get your bearings. That's the really important part. All right, so that is the build, and now let's get into the boss, and let's start breaking down her abilities, starting with the first phase. So I have the fight playing out in half speed here, and this is going to last for the entire video until I show the attempt in full with my stream commentary at the end. General piece of advice I have to give for this fight is if at any point you see the boss strafing left or right, do not attack her. She is going to dodge your attack and very likely deal damage to you. At best, you trade, but the trades are losses because she heals. So just keep that in mind. If she's walking dead on, generally it's safe, but it's not a guaranteed safe. It's just very, very likely that it's safe to do so. I also light my lantern just so I could better see what's going on. Okay, so she's going straight on. I just go in and attack her, no problem. Only attack twice because she's going to dodge after the second one and then do some sweeping strikes. You can just roll away from those, no problem. This kick here is very tricky. I really do not recommend punishing the kick unless you manage to land right next to her. The stab strike, I recommend rolling backwards. This way you land right in front of her, and then you want to be mashing R1 during your roll. This way, as soon as you come out of it, you're able to punish. So we're doing the same thing here. Like mid-roll, I'm mashing R1 there. But you don't want to overcommit because the boss has a low probability of actually recovering very quickly and stepping back. She'll never attack right away, so your R1 will whiff, and then you can roll back and reset yourself. But that can happen. Okay, so whenever the boss sort of glides to the side, you want to move in the opposite direction to keep everything square. It's like a boxing match. You never want to get yourself put into a corner. So again, for this, we're going to roll back, mashing R1. We get 1 hit. I see the boss kind of get staggered a bit. We go for a second hit. The boss gets staggered again. I go for a third. This move here, when you hear that very distinct sound, the boss is disconnecting the sword from her wrist and holding it in her hand. There are 2 variations of that move, and I'm going to repeat it here just so you know what I'm talking about very clearly. So you're going to hear a sound, and then see the boss sort of lift up her hand, and she's going to disconnect the blade from her wrist and come into you with it. What you need to do is roll up and to the right to avoid it, and then roll backwards to avoid the next slash. However, if when the boss does this ability, there are no sparks with it, the second attack of the string will be delayed and has an extremely long recovery time that you can very easily punish. So if there's sparks, just back away, let her do it, don't punish. If there are no sparks, you can go in and punish. That's the rule of thumb for that move. And it continues through phase 2 as well. So it's very important that you're able to recognize that attack and respond accordingly. So there's a lot of waiting in phase 2 for the simple fact that going in on her while she's strafing really isn't a good idea. And if you get close to her, you run the risk of dealing with a move that you can't respond quickly to. So if you were to move in front of her and get very close to her, she will do something, but you may be out of position to deal with it. So I just recommend waiting for a while, let her get back towards the center of the room, and then giving the AI a bit of time to reset. All right, so this move here is really important. What I do is I block the first flurry of attacks, I roll upright twice, I walk into her when she's above me again, and then as soon as she starts flying, I move back. The motion on my left stick on my controller is basically I start it upright for like half a second, and then I move it to downright very gradually. Like I don't go upright, downright. I do upright to right to downright. Very smooth motion. Once you get comfortable doing that, you're going to solve that problem really quick. There is a Korean YouTuber by the name of Ongbal, and he has uploaded a method to completely dodge it, but it is very difficult to do. So I don't employ that strategy. I just let her heal for like 10%, block the first flurry, roll twice, and then do some movement to avoid the rest. That's my personal strategy. It's what I feel comfortable with, but go check out Ongbal's video to see how he does it, if you'd like. All right, so sometimes the boss can do a spark and then ready a move where she does a sweeping strike into a jump and downward strike. Just roll twice, fairly easy to avoid. This attack here is a huge opportunity for damage. You can literally just roll through that down strike into the boss and you're fine. For this stab, again, just roll back while mashing R1. This way, you come out of the roll, doing some damage, and you can get her caught. All right, so these sweeping strikes, I just like to avoid. This is the no spark hack and slash. You can punish this one. The one with no sparks, you can punish. And like I said, it's very important that you're able to recognize that. The other thing you'll notice that I'm not doing is hitting her more than twice if the second hit does not stagger her. If the second hit does not stagger, do not go in for a third hit. It's extremely important. And you will hear me yelling at myself during my final attempt when I do kill her that anytime I go in for 3, I get punished. All right, so here it's really important that you do not immediately start guarding until she's about to move into you. The reason for that is because you want to be able to have as much stamina as possible while you're blocking, and you recover stamina more slowly while you're holding up your shield. So when she just jumps above you like that, it's important that you just back up without holding your shield, and then you make sure that you are back in one-handed mode. This way you can use your shield, and then you roll up to the right twice after you block the first string, and then move up forward to down forward, or upright to down right in one smooth motion on your stick. And that's how you manage that piece of the fight. It may seem like the boss is healing up to like 50%, just going back to full health during that flurry. It feels that way when she's above 50%, but when she's below 50%, you'll actually realize that she's not healing up that much. So blocking the first flurry is completely fine. It's always going to feel like you need just one more hit to end the phase, and it's also always going to feel like the boss is doing her best to extend the first phase and prevent you from seeing her true form. I cannot stress how many times this has happened to me, and I've tried to rush her down for that last hit, only to get punished. So it almost happened there. I just kind of went for it, and luckily I was able to dodge everything, and then we get a good roll through this down slash, and we're fine. Phase 2 is when things get really wild. As soon as the phase starts, you want to untarget the boss and run forward. You're going to come across a little weird invisible wall, but just move around it to the right and then curve to the left. The boss will dive bomb behind you, and this is your opportunity to use a rune arc. I am using Rykard's Great Rune for the added health and stamina. I think Godric's would be fine as well. And then from here, if you have any spells, you'll see me use Black Flame a little bit later on in the fight just to do some damage while she's in this flower state. If you have anything to do damage there, go for it. Not necessary, but it does help. You'll notice that I've switched to one-handed sword and board. And you'll also notice that I messed up pretty dearly there, and the boss has already recovered some health. So, the reason I switched to one-handed is because, frankly, I'm a little afraid of the boss in Phase 2. I'm not extremely comfortable with all of her moves like I am in Phase 1. This move especially, where she flies and then dives into you and then does an unsparked hack and slash, I have the worst time recognizing that move. However, after she hits you once, you can start to ready yourself for the hack and slash. You'll also notice that I hit her 3 times there. The boss has a very obvious stagger animation in Phase 2. However, sometimes she is facing away from you and it's difficult to see. You need to really train yourself to not go in on the boss if you can't actually tell what's happening to her. It's better to just hit her once and assume that she's recovered than to try to hit her twice only to realize she has recovered and can now punish you, and it's a bad trade. All trades in this fight are bad. Okay, so again, whenever the boss flies in a strafe, either left or right, you want to strafe the opposite way to keep it even. You always want to keep it square with this boss, and you don't ever want to put yourself in a corner. All right, so this move here is a kick. The kicks, especially in Phase 2, are extremely tricky for me. What I do get into a pattern of later on in the fight is hitting her 3 times and then dodging the kick. Okay, so that flying move right there is easy enough to avoid, but because my flask timing just lined up perfectly, I wasn't able to avoid it. But basically, she just flies down, does an arcing slash, lands, and then does a stab. You can avoid those both pretty easily as long as you know what to look for. All right, so whenever the boss does a straight vertical flight, she's going to go right back down and stab the ground. When that happens, there's going to be an explosion of rot a second later. So you just want to get behind the boss, this way you can punish. You can stuff the hack and slash move if your weapon is fast enough, or if it has enough reach that you're able to hit her before she reaches you. It's always stuffable. However, I just recommend trying to dodge, but I just kind of got a little lucky there. All right, so this move here is the same as Phase 1. It just looks different because she looks different, but it's just a sweeping strike into an up slash into a slam. Easy enough to avoid. When the boss flutters just a little above you, she's going to do her flurry strike. So the same exact strategy applies. Block the first set, roll upright twice, move up to the right, and then down to the right in a smooth motion, and you'll avoid the whole thing, at least the second and third set of flurries. Okay, so the stab is the same exact animation, and same way to punish it. Just roll and mash R1. This way you come out swinging, but don't go for a third hit unless she is staggered. Okay, so here's the kick again. I roll into it, and you can do that as long as you land like right next to the boss. You're going to have a quick enough recovery time to where you can successfully hit the boss. Okay, so I was able to recognize that flight. She's sort of looking down at you, and then you can just roll into her and hit her before she readies the hack and slash. Again, these regular sweeping strikes, I just like to avoid. I only really like going in on the boss in areas that I can punish. Unfortunately, I made a pretty bad mistake there. It cost me dearly. She's basically back up to the health that she had when the phase started. Eventually, we're going to start whittling her down, I promise. Okay, so you saw there was a rod explosion. I just got away from those. You do want to have a few preserving boluses on you. It's just really helpful. There's also an incantation, Oh Flame Cleanse Me or something like that. That is very helpful as well. That can cleanse the Scarlet Rot too. So you'll notice that the boss basically flew straight up as I was about to punish her. This can happen, and it's why it's very important not to overcommit your hits. if you overcommit your hits, you're going to wind up getting punished in weird ways. So sometimes the boss can do an ability, land it, and then fly straight up and do a stronger version of that. And if you've already swung your sword one time, then you're going to be overcommitted and get hit. However, if you just swung once, you could reset and actually punish. So this fairy move, I have a somewhat difficult time dodging. I was able to do it sometimes, but not all the time. Basically, you want to roll left once, roll right, and then delay the second roll right again, and then just wait. However, your timing has to be perfect. It's really difficult, but I'll explain it again when it comes up. All right, so the boss is going to do a slam here. You eventually start to recognize which one's going to be a slam and which one's going to be the flurry strike. She flies up much higher and much more vertical when it's going to be a slam versus the flurry strike. All right, so we're just sort of letting the boss kind of reset herself here, not trying to commit too much. Rolled perfectly into the kick. That means I can punish, hit her twice. However, the second hit didn't stagger, so I waited and just dodged the other kick. So this is a regular slice into the slice and dice. That one looks really similar to the flurry strike, so I'm never comfortable punishing it too much. But as long as you can avoid the slice and dice, you will not heal her too much. So don't worry about it. All right, so this slam is another really good opportunity for damage, but it will result in a Scarlet Rot explosion, so you got to be careful. Somehow I was able to start blocking this flurry strike at the perfect time, and I had just enough stamina for 2 rolls. Literally could not have planned that any better if I had asked for it. So it's really tough to recognize when she's going to flurry strike, especially in phase 2, because everything looks kind of similar, but they are slightly different. It's really the height of her hover that is the key differentiator between all of her flying moves. All right, so we do a sweeping slam. We just roll into it, get behind her. However, before we can do anything, she flies straight up to do that again. For this, we can just get behind her. We can hit her 2 or 3 times. I'm going in for a third here. I could have gone for a fourth, but I never like to do more than 3 in phase 2 for the simple fact that I want to manage my stamina. That grab animation, you can just treat that just like a stab. Just roll backwards, hit R1 as soon as you come out, and you'll be able to punish. All right, so she will generally try to counter you with kicks. That's kind of the way she does it. A little difficult to recognize the kicks themselves, but eventually you'll get a bit more comfortable with it and kind of feel out the pattern of those kicks. All right, so hack and slash, roll into her. It has sparks, so we're rolling back. And then we are squaring the fight whenever she strafes. That's a really important habit to get into, is square her strafes. All right, so this is a really important ability that she'll use when she's below 50% HP. Actually, probably closer to 60% HP. It's the same move that she opens the fight with. So you treat it the exact same. If she's close, you can just run right through her. Or if you're at a distance, just wait for her to get close, roll backwards, and then just hold up your shield. And then as soon as the flower starts to shake, that's when you can roll backwards again to avoid the Scarlet Rot explosion. If you do get inflicted with Scarlet Rot, just quickly heal it off and use a flask to get your health back. All right, so here's the fairy strike again. We're going to roll to the left. We're going to roll to the right. We're going to delay our second roll a bit, only because of that other strike. However, what you really want to do is you want to delay the second right roll so much that when you roll immediately again, you actually avoid 2 things at once. So you have to roll very late to the right the second time. This way you avoid 2 strikes simultaneously. It's really difficult to do. I did it on other attempts, but I just couldn't get it consistently because I would get nervous. But you just got to do a late second right roll. So it's left, right, long delay, right, right, and then wait for her to stab, and you can just roll backwards through the stab to punish her. All right, so we finally had the boss under 50% HP somewhat consistently. So now I'm really feeling the pattern, and it's all starting to come together. So this is the grab again. Treat it the same way you treat a stab. Just roll backwards and punish right away. However, like I said earlier, she can just quickly go straight up in the air and come down with a slam. After basically any move that she can do that. That's why it's very important not to overcommit your hits until you actually see her react to things. So unfortunately, I got clipped there, and that led to big damage for me. Trying to heal, she gets yet another hit off, and then she's going to do a sweeping strike. Going to have to wind up blocking. Luckily, I knew that I was able to punish this move here because it had no spark, so I was able to get her back under 50% HP and kind of get back to where I was. The huge thing in Phase 2 is that it's demoralizing. That's the whole thing about this fight. It can be extremely demoralizing to fight Malenia. However, if you just don't look at her health bar, you will find yourself having a better time fighting her. It's a lot easier said than done. You're killing bosses the whole game. You're looking at health bars the entire game, but you just gotta worry about fighting her. Don't worry about killing her. Worry about learning how to fight her. All right, so you saw there, because I was against a wall, she kind of had a much quicker time flying over me than if she was full screen. So luckily, I was able to get out of everything and then have an opportunity to throw 2 black flame fireballs in there just to deal a little bit of damage. Nothing too significant. It's just nice to be able to constantly deal damage to her. This way you can end the fight quicker. But if you don't have any magic, don't worry about it. Use a bow, whatever you want. You don't even have to do anything. You can just wait. If you do want to go in on her after that flower attack, you want to wait until the last petal falls. You may take a little bit of Scarlet Rot damage there if you're too quick. However, if you wait for the last petal to fall, the most you'll take is 1 tick. If you find yourself taking more than that, you're going in too early. But you can get some decent damage on her as she's coming out of the flower. All right, so we have her health below the name, which is a really good sign. Okay, so we're avoiding the kicks. I really don't like doing anything with them. Just let her do her thing. She does not wait nearly as long to do anything in Phase 2 as Phase 1. All right, so because she's just hovering just above us, this is going to be a flurry strike. Unfortunately, the health goes back above her name. Again, it can be demoralizing, but it's just about learning. That's all this fight is learning. Eventually, you'll kill her. Okay, so after that flurry strike, she's got some distance. So what I'm attempting to do is just kind of get away from her. This way she moves away from that wall. You really don't ever want to fight her against walls. It's not a good idea. All right, so she's coming in. This is going to be an arc slash. She's going to land and then stab. We can roll through the stab, get 1 or 2 hits off. So we get 2. We're going in for a 3rd because she got staggered, and then we just roll backwards through the kick. Beautiful. If only they could all be like that. All right, so we got the health below the R and Rot, which is great. This move always kind of trips me up in Phase 2 because she has so many other moves that look like it, so I may not always punish that, but just roll once, she goes up, roll again for the down strike, and you're okay. All right, so we get 3 hits in, we back up. She's only got a little bit more to go. All right, so she comes in with the slash. Now she's going to do an unsparked hack and slash, and then we can roll through that. Unfortunately, I was slow on the punish, but she just went straight up, which I knew was fine. As long as I didn't overcommit to more than 1 hit, I could punish no problem. So 2 hits, 3 times a lady, and then we back up again. And then we're basically home free at this point. We just got to make sure we don't mess up, don't give her any opportunities to heal too much, and then you're fine. So we have a sparked hack and slash. We just roll through that and then backwards to avoid the follow-up. She glides over. I follow her to get myself away from the wall. And now she's going to do a up strike into a slam. I'll go ahead and punish that. You'll notice that I backed off. It's because I couldn't really recognize what it was. I go to punish. She flies straight up to do a slam. No problem. I get behind her, or to her side rather. You never want to be too close to that explosion because it can clip you and interrupt your attack and cause you to take a bunch of damage if you punish too early. So I didn't want to go in on her there because I felt like my swing would have been too slow had I done so, and I just didn't want to make it so she could deal any damage to me. I wanted to be as safe as possible to end this fight. That said, that final hit was super greedy. I don't actually know why I did it, and I didn't even realize I did it. And when you watch the final fight and hear my reaction, I'm going to be just as surprised as everybody else, because it was sort of like my brain just took over, or maybe my muscle memory just took over, and I saw that any hit is going to kill her, so I just did it. But I really should have waited at the end there. And that's it. that is the strategy for Malenia, the Severed Blade of Miquella, Goddess of Rot. This fight took me about 2.5 days, probably like 16, 17 hours to do. Like I said in the beginning, there are a lot of other strategies to fight her. You can use katanas and stack bleed. You can do frost damage. You can overpower her with jumping R2s with colossal weapons. There are other ways to go about this fight that are admittedly a lot easier. However, in my opinion, summoning spirits, stacking certain infusions, and ultimately changing your playstyle just to fight one boss isn't necessarily the most fun thing to do, especially because you get kind of attached to how you're building your character over time, and having to relearn how to play with different weapons and different combat styles for one boss just isn't great. So I wanted to make sure that this boss was doable with a basic build. Yeah, I'm using a greatsword, but you can use a longsword. It'll just take you a little bit longer. The boss does not have any poise at all. She has some super armor or hyper armor in certain moves, but for the most part, when I stagger her with a greatsword, she'll get staggered with a longsword. The greatsword just has longer reach and does a bit more damage. I just wanted to show that this is doable without anything extra, and I hope I've proven that to you, and I hope this guide has been helpful. I will leave it with my kill attempt. Warning, there's some strong language here. This came after 2.5 days of grinding. I did stream this, so thank you so much to everybody in the chat for hanging out and cheering me on and getting hype along with me. It was a really, really fun time. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment. I'll do my best to help you out. If you're looking for more guides for Elden Ring, please subscribe to the channel so you get alerted when new guides go live. If you're interested in supporting the channel monetarily, please consider becoming a channel member by clicking the blue join button below this video. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter and join my Discord. The links for those are in the description below. As always, I'm SweetJohnnyCage. Thank you so much for watching. Good luck, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Oh, crap, I appreciate that. I luckily had the game for a week before it came out, so I was able to get 60 videos done, like, for the embargo, which was really, really helpful for everything. Like, I sort of became, like, the first person with, like, actual guides, which was really nice. And then, like, that's just kind of carried over into everything. That was such a reach. All right, I'll check out the Young Ball video after this attempt. I hate it. I fucking hate it. Like, why does she do that sometimes? Sometimes she dodges. Sometimes she doesn't. Every other move is consistently predictable. Oh my god. Had I not done 3, that wouldn't have happened. Hot Girls and Boys videos showed up, so this is the attempt. I see that their messages got deleted, but they showed up. This is the attempt, everybody. It's happening here. Wrong way. Wow, that was a greedy hit. Can't lie, that was real greedy. That's the move that I don't know how to contend with. It is like the flutter slam into a slice and dice. I don't really know what to do about that. Unfucking believable. She got both hits off of that potion. I hate you. I can't believe that. Oh my god. Nah, it didn't work. Oh! I had no idea where the hell she was. Oh my good lord, I can't believe I just fucking survived that. Holy shit. Whew! Alright, yeah. If I don't dodge that, like, properly, I shouldn't attack. My heart's beating pretty fast right now. God, that gives her so much fucking health back. Okay, all right, let's calm down, calm down, calm down, calm down. Three, you dumbass. Oh, you fucking idiot. Yep, you deserve all of this. She deserves to get all of her health back, John, because you're a fucking idiot because you went for 3. And this is what happens when you don't listen to your own fucking brain when it tells you to stop. I don't know where the fuck you're going. Ow. I went for 3 there because she was stuffed. My heart, I can feel my fucking heart right now. Oh! Fuck this boss! Hot girls and boys! Hot girls and boys! I'm listening to the dialogue. I haven't walked away. Holy shit!